As always, please retry this question before watching the video. There are several things that you need to know on this question, and it's not just about this question. These things show up on 100% of ACTs, and they show up a significant number of times. And not only that, you need to know these things for grammar for the rest of your life. So this question might take you longer than the others if you don't have this stuff down, and you need to take the time now to get these things down. So if you don't know the answer to any of these, pause the video right then after we go over it, add it to your cheat sheet and drill it until it is muscle memory. Then go back 5 on your cheat sheet before continuing in the video. I'll remind you a couple of times as we're going through it, but please know that should always be the practice. And you will increase faster than the other students if you start now. It takes more time in the short run, but it will save you so much time in the long run from having to keep relearning these and keep missing questions because you don't have them down. All right. So with that in mind, let's jump into these questions. What is the WTD for clause questions? Consider the 3 things for each answer individually. Consider the 3 things for each answer individually. If you don't have that down, add it to your cheat sheet, master it, drill it until you do, and then go back 5 on our cheat sheet before continuing in this video. What are the 3 things? Punctuation in the middle of a clause, no independent clause in a sentence, and clauses separated improperly. Punctuation in the middle of a clause, no independent clause in a sentence, and clauses separated improperly. We are giving you gold with those 3 things. So many of you are overcomplicating these questions. You can eliminate 80% of the wrong answers with just those 3 things. You don't need to know a bajillion other grammar rules, just those 3 things. So if you don't have those 3 things ingrained on your soul, if you can't just instantly repeat them, go ahead and add it to your cheat sheet, master it, drill it until you do, and then go back 5. And no matter how long it takes, do what you need to do to get these down. What are the 3 main sentence structures? Independent plus independent, independent plus dependent, dependent plus independent. Again, I'm going to stop reminding us after each of these. Please just know always on all these videos, if you don't know the answer to one of the questions, pause the video, add to your cheat sheet, drill it until you do, and then go back 5 before continuing in the video. How do we separate independent plus independent? Answer is the 5 ways. The 5 ways. What are the 5 ways? Comma fanboys, period, semicolon, M dash, colon. Comma fanboys, period, semicolon, M dash, colon. Comma fanboys, period, semicolon, M dash, colon. How do we separate independent plus dependent or dependent plus independent? Comma always, comma always. What is the easiest way to determine we have a dependent clause? And that's that it starts with a dependent clause marker. It starts with a dependent clause marker. We're trying to retrain your brains to stop asking yourself, can it stand alone as a sentence? Stop asking yourself, does it have subject, verb, complete thought? These can be useful, but the ACT is going to trick you. The ACT is going to trick you if you're using them. The surefire way, if it starts with a dependent clause marker, it's a dependent clause. It really is that easy. And we're not going to go over the 10 magic words in this video, but if you don't know your 10 magic words, this is probably also a great time. Just pause the video, get those down, and they are going to make your lives easier. What is the easiest way to determine we have an independent clause? And that's that it does not start with a dependent clause marker. It does not start with a dependent clause marker. What are the 4 main dependent clause markers? We have subordinate conjunctions, relative pronouns, prepositions, and participles. Subordinate conjunctions, relative pronouns, prepositions, and participles. What part of speech is although? It's a subordinate conjunction. Although is a subordinate conjunction, so it is a dependent clause marker. It can act as a conjunctive adverb if it separates 2 independent clauses in one sentence, but don't overcomplicate this. Although is a dependent clause marker, and I said it separates two independent clauses. I meant an independent and dependent clause, but yes. So that is one thing you need to know to answer this. And last but not least, what are our main helping verbs? What are our main helping verbs? Am, is, are, was, were. Am, is, are, was, were. Am, is, are, was, were. And helping verbs are just as much verbs as any other verb, and they are the most common verbs on the ACT. So these are going to be very helpful when we're trying to find our subject-verb combos, which we'll discuss in this video. With those things in mind, let's go ahead and take a look at each of these answers and eliminate our wrong answers. All right, answer A. So we're going to consider the three things for each answer individually. Is there punctuation in the middle of a clause? So we got to find our clauses first to be able to determine if there's punctuation in the middle of one of these clauses. So go ahead, pause the video for a second, see if you can find. There are two subject-verb combos in this question. See if you can find the two subject-verb combos. The easiest way to do that is to find the verb first. Find the verb first. And the words in front of the verb are almost always going to be the subject. Immediately in front of the verb are almost always going to be the subject. So see if you can do it. The first verb is knows. And so our subject's going to be immediately before it. Nearly no one knows. So that's our subject-verb combo. That means we have a clause. That means that's the start of that clause. You know, if it has a dependent clause marker, an independent clause marker in front of it, that would be, part of it. But that is our clause. And then our second verb. See if you can find the second verb if you haven't already. Are. Are is our second verb here. And the subject is there, all right? The word immediately in front of it. So this is the start of our second subject-verb combo. Therefore, it is the start of our second clause. And therefore, we need to separate it from the first clause. And in answer A, we do that with a comma, okay? I'm not saying that's right or wrong as far as which way we separate it, but that's how, but it needs to be separated because we have two clauses and you need to separate at the start of the second clause or start of any subsequent clause. There needs to be some sort of separation. We'll talk, there's some exceptions to that, but we'll talk about that in a future video. All right, so for now, we have two clauses and let's read them both. Although nearly no one knows what this artist looks like, that's our first clause. We know it ends because then we have our subject-verb combo. There are, so that's the start of the next clause. So that one's done. There are many who know his work. So neither of these clauses have punctuation in the middle of them. There's punctuation between the two clauses, which is perfect. You're supposed to have punctuation between two clauses, but neither of these have punctuation in the middle of a clause. All right. So there is no there's no punctuation in the middle of a clause. Answer A, there is an independent clause. See if you can determine the sentence structure of these clauses. All right, the first one is a dependent clause. We know that because it starts with although, which is a subordinate conjunction. And so that's a dependent clause marker, and that's a dependent clause. There is the first word in the second one. That is not a dependent clause marker. Therefore, that is an independent clause. Therefore, there is an independent clause in this sentence. So answer A, there is an independent clause in the sentence, so we can't separate it that way. And then we have to determine, are they separated properly? So we have dependent followed by independent. Ask yourself, how are we supposed to separate dependent followed by independent? The answer is always a comma. So we can't find anything wrong with answer A. And so we're going to move on to answer B. See if we can find anything wrong with it. All right, none of these have punctuation in the middle of a clause. There is an independent clause in the sentence. There are many who know his work. And are the clauses separated properly? So we still have dependent followed by independent. And therefore, we use a comma always. But they did not use a comma in answer B. They used a period, which is used to separate the it's used to separate independent plus independent. It's one of the 5 ways to separate independent plus independent. But we don't have independent plus independent. We have dependent plus independent. And therefore, answer B is wrong because the clauses are separated improperly. All right. And as soon as you find that one of the three things is going to be the reason that you eliminate one of the answers, it's almost always going to be the same thing for the other wrong answers. And so we can just jump right to, are the clauses separated properly for answer C? And again, they are not. We have dependent followed by independent, and that must be separated with comma always. They use one of the 5 ways. You cannot use one of the 5 ways to separate dependent plus independent. And the same thing for D. They just didn't separate it at all. There's no comma there, but we need a comma always for dependent followed by independent. There are exceptions to that, but that is the rule. And so if you don't have the exceptions mastered, then don't worry about it. Just always assume you need a comma there because you probably be pretty daggum safe. So we've eliminated the 3 wrong answers, and we're left with answer A, and it is the right answer. If this made sense to you, please add it to your worksheet. Include what you learned that you want to retain along with the answer, and then continue on to the other clause 3 questions that you missed on this test. If this is the final clause 3 question that you missed on this test, please go ahead now and do the clause 3 mastery until you get 10 questions correct in a row, and then continue on to the next category that you miss the most of.